you gave that specific challenge example. Is the ability to come together and tackle a challenge. We'll continue using the word challenge and not call it a problem. In a client contractor relationship, you can easily call things problems. Is the approach to addressing challenges inherently baked into the fact that we're in a scientific industry and everyone wants to collaboratively and civilly solve scientific problems, or is there more to that story? Is it just baked into your head of CMC and your chief scientific officer, Jerry? They just know that they're going to see things over there at Forge that confound them, and we're going to have to get together and figure them out. We're not going to get mad about it. We're not going to be displeased with our service. We're not going to be displeased with their, subject matter expertise. We're going to solve the problem because we're scientists, and that's what we do.
I will say this, Matt, and I'll turn it over to John. I would get nervous if we don't see challenges in our day-to-day operation. Right. If a week goes by and we don't have some issue that comes to the forefront, whether it's in manufacturing or in clinical development or an assay or you name it, right? It would be surprising to me. That's the nature of our job. Keep making forward progress by solving problems along the way. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's expected. I think you nailed it. It's the nature of our business where we have hypotheses around science and technology, and we're moving them along in the process. So it's constantly an examination of and examination of the business, and also looking at potential speed bumps along the way.
Yeah, I'll add to Matt. It's why I mentioned to connect quickly and transparently with the client. Those were two more brains on that we get to now access to talk about the challenge. And of course, we make sure we collect the right data so we can have a call and walk through what we found, make sure the data is clear, and engage on a solution. We also like to come with solutions to those meetings. So we usually pretty rapidly meet and say, okay, here are 2 or 3 options that we can do. One might be one path that might take a little longer, but maybe a little more straightforward from a documentation standpoint. One might be quicker, but have to get some reads from the quality unit to see their comfort levels. Generally we always make the right decision for, quality, safety, and that's really, and potency as we're thinking about drugs, but it's best to do those collectively with the client and make sure everyone's on the same page. Luckily, a lot of our clients are very seasoned scientists in the cell and gene therapy space. Now, we do have some clients who don't have that, unfortunately. That's why Jerry's advice for hiring CMC internally is a very good piece of advice for early organizations. Sometimes they're small and they're in their seed rounds and they're looking for some early advice. We try to come with solutions and advice with those as well. And, that's sometimes a little bit more of a challenge, but we always love the luxury of we're actually working with a really great technical team on the other side here. Let's get together and walk through these now, make sure they hear what we're sort of being challenged with, and then use our expertise to try to solve collectively.
Yeah. We're going to run short on time here, guys. You okay for a couple more?
Yeah, sounds good.
Sure. All right, good. The next thing I want to ask you about, I hesitate to ask you about. I love to talk about culture, and we've hinted at it. Like we've had, there's been a thread of culture throughout this entire conversation, and I love talking about culture and cultural match and cultural fits, but at the same time, they're hard to it's a hard thing to quantify, right? It's a hard thing to say, well, because we have this tight culture and it works out, like that's why we're gonna save or make money, right? Like it's hard. You can't connect those dots easily. But I do want to stop there for a minute and talk about this, because I do think it's important for our listeners, again, who perhaps are seeing some of this for the first time or about to understand what the value of a good cultural fit is beyond, Jerry thinks John's a pretty fun guy to have a beer with, but he's, not necessarily real good at running an outsourced manufacturing company. So to whatever degree you can, reflecting on the past year working together, can you point to any anecdotes or examples of the value of a good cultural fit? I know it's a hard question to be like, yeah, I can ascribe a specific value to that, but you get what I'm going for.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll start, Matt, just a little bit, because there's sort of 2 aspects. One is internal culture in Forge, because I can't generate a culture with a client unless I have a good internal culture here. And we, over the last 2 years, have grown to 370 plus people. So, maintaining culture when we were 100 people is a challenge as we grow this side. Interestingly enough, taking over, I started working on some internal culture philosophies around how we actually interact, not only internally, but with clients. So really establishing some new pillars and forge of what's important to us about how we work together and work with, our clients. And ultimately at the top of these pillars are patients, which is why we're on the call here talking about why these relationships are important, because we ultimately want to help really sick people, get better. So in there, we're talking, these pillars have to do with keep my people internally, making sure they're in a great environment where they have growth and well protected, safe environment, but also room for growth in their own careers. And then operational excellence, so clients are actually receiving high quality product in the time they believe that they need them. And moving forward, quality is another pillar. We're really focused on making sure quality mindedness is a big part of our organization. And then clients, because we are in an organization where we have to service our clients and make sure they have the attention and the sort of, part of Forge they need to make sure their products are being moved forward. So that's what I'm using going forward to create this more, operational feeling at Forge as we move into late stage commercial. So then take that back to like working with Jerry and his team, if we can't even communicate properly on a call, we don't have the same values, it sometimes does make a really difficult working situation. And if the client is just ready, wants to move forward, and we're worried about this is not a real world example, but I'll give you for instance, if a client had a program where I felt it was unsafe, that's something that we would have to have that conversation. That might not be the right culture to work with that particular client, right? Yeah. Innovation teams like Jerry's, that's where we all meet together. And I think that's why we have such a good working relationship. Jerry, I hope you don't mind, but I went to one of their quarterly meetings to talk about Forge and introduce it to his staff in Philadelphia. And that's an access for me that I really enjoy. I want them to know I got a chance to listen to their team and watch how they work together. And it's just, that's something that I think creates another level of a relationship. And I think it's really important in our industry, quite frankly, to make sure we're all rowing the boat the same way for helping patients and kids.
Yeah, that's good. I've seldom sort of contemplated the cultural aspect. I spend all my time talking to sponsors, very, very little talking to outsourced manufacturers. I seldom contemplate the fact that you have the right, John, to say, you know what, your culture doesn't fit with this facility, so better go find somebody that does, right? Yeah. Right. Jerry, anything to add?
Well, no, I think it's well. So that example of John coming to our company, we pride ourselves and we have an initiative and mission to be a learning organization, whether you're a technical expert or not. And so at we have quarterly all hands meetings where I bring the whole company together for a couple of days, and we always dedicate a meaningful amount of time to learning. And that learning could be an ophthalmologist coming in and talking about glaucoma, could be a gene therapy expert. In this case, we have our legal team, our finance team, the office manager, they know Forge by emails and paperwork, right, and bills. But they don't know John and they don't know what's under the hood. And we thought it'd be a great idea. And John was very eager and agreed to come and give us a dimension, help them understand further. That forges the relationship, no pun intended, even further. When you have not only our head of CMC and our chief scientific officer and myself, who spend more time with John and his team, but the rest of the organization, they become more invested, they understand. And once again, it's such a critical component to us. So it's part of the organization being learning. And then we have a philosophy, and I'm very fortunate that our senior exec team, and I think it's where, frankly, many folks miss, is treat your quote unquote, we like to say sometimes the industry vendors, but treat your vendors truly not just as partners, but as part of the team. So take the partner out. They are members of the team. Mm-hmm. You invest time and energy in them, and you'll get more back in terms of mind space and share of their energy and commitment than you could ever imagine. And so if you treat the CDMO, the CRO, your other consultants with a lot of respect and include them in a broader aspect of the company, help them understand more what your challenges are and what your opportunities are, it then, I think, helps them give more back to the organization. So we probably spend a little more sometimes on consultants in some of these situations, more time. But for us as a small company that's virtual, I can't imagine doing any other way. It's the only way I think we can operate, have operational excellence, and that's how it works on our end. And I told you, I talk to John from time to time because they've grown very quickly. John, how are you keeping that culture together? How we've talked about it, and it's something we keep an eye on, and I'm glad I know that John is as well. So, but that's always the challenge, right? There was a time when they were not nascent, but they were young and growing, but they've grown so fast now, and that's the challenge he faces. But so far, so good.
Yeah, very good. Well, guys, I'm gonna let you off the hook. I'll tell you, I love these episodes where I have partners on, whether it's outsourcing company and sponsor, or it's a VC and a budding biotech, because they're fun and engaging conversations. Sometimes I'm a little bit hesitant because my audience goes, well, Forge and Life wouldn't get on this podcast together if they weren't going to have a great big love fest. We have to protect from that, right? This was I'm gonna say this was a transparent and instructive conversation for our audience. I believe it was. I think anybody who listened to this conversation is walking away with some takeaways around, here's some things I should be thinking about as I engage in these discussions and these negotiations and the vetting process. So I really appreciate it. I appreciate you guys coming on and sharing some good anecdotes and concrete examples. Good value for the audience.
Great. Well, thank you for having us, Matt. Really appreciate the time. And Jerry, always good to see you.
Always good to see you, John. And Matt, thank you again. I really enjoy the time spent with you.